What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale coming at you with the one, the only Mr. Mort Jensen of the NBA podcast fame, of Yahoo Sports fame, of HBO Max fame, and of OnlyFans celebrity. We are
Right.
here to do something no other podcast in the NBA space is doing, and that's to talk about trade candidates, but not just any trade candidates. Under the radar trade candidates, names that aren't in the rumor mill that maybe could be moved, should be moved. I'm sure we'll take stances. We might just ask some questions here. Mort, before we get started, how the heck are you doing?
Doing well, sir. Doing well. Would like to give you an official apology for simply being being put in a situation where I couldn't get home and actually record an episode with you as per planned, which was very frustrating to me.
Millions of people were waiting for the live stream, and when I made the announcement, billions maybe even. Yeah. The response was especially lamentable from the alien race,
Right.
for people on other planets that were waiting, chopping in on live stream. So,
Yeah.
But the episode went up without you. The show must go on. We're glad that you're okay and you were not part of said car accident that infringed upon your schedule.
Yep.
I did have a question for you about this exercise. When you're thinking about this, are you thinking it in terms of, because I didn't, which is why I'm asking. I'm not identifying someone where it's, let's use the Spurs as an example, where everyone's decided they're too good to make some sort of big move. So the move is, well, can we attach to Kelly Olynyk's salary and add to this rotation? I didn't approach this and will not be approaching this from that perspective. I looked at it as guys who teams would be interested in actively acquiring that aren't in the rumor mill, that if these teams get called about, they either wouldn't hang up or shouldn't hang up. And some of them might be more under the radar names. I have a couple spicy ones in mind, and I'm just curious as to what your approach is going to be for it.
Yeah, like teams who identify good contracts for sure, but also just the teams that actually have the good contract that might be thinking, you know what? This guy, he's going to be tough to extend because of the 140% rule. So perhaps we should get out ahead of it as long as this guy has at least a couple of years left on his deal. So that was the perspective. I didn't think in terms of like package deals whatsoever. Like I am picking individual players and basically saying this guy should have some trade value.
Yeah, I was asking because Grant tried to game an NBA trade value draft we had, and he selected Tobias Harris at one point. And he then retracted the pick because he was viewing it through the lens of any move Detroit makes, it will be Tobias Harris plus whatever to bring back name X. And so I was curious if you were looking at it through, which I don't think is an invalid way of looking at it. I'm just here asking questions about whether these guys should be available, whether they have value. So I will give you the first pick. Who is your first under the radar NBA trade candidate?
So I don't know if he counts as under the radar, but Onyeka Okongwu.
That's interesting. Were you going alphabetically? Or are you just going through the entire league right now?
No, this is a guy I've been thinking about for a while. 15 million this year, 16.1 next year, 16.8 during the final year of his contract. He is cheap, under 10% of the salary cap. I think it's actually pretty steady at 9.7% of the cap for the duration of his contract. This year, he's been starting to shoot and hit the three ball at a much higher clip. Still a good defender. Still an underrated playmaker as a center. I like his defense, although he's undersized. And that's probably where the issues kind of lie, right? Like he's a 6'8" center. Can you play him at the 4 in a pinch? Sure. Now that he's expanded his range, I would argue you could, which I also think kind of makes him a little bit more valuable. Of course, the Hawks would probably like to keep someone like him on that good of a deal, especially when they also got Nickeil Alexander-Walker in there on that type of a deal, which is great. So it comes down to, can we as an organization get something in return for Onyeka, which is going to be substantially better moving forward in towards our fit. Now, I don't have a specific trade destination, although I will say if there's a team that could use a center who's more productive, that would be Orlando. But does that make sense?
Probably. I guess if you trust the shooting over a Wendell Carter Jr. there.
Yeah, but he's a 6'8" center. That's where it gets tough, right?
What about they'd have to give up stuff? I don't know if they're there. Boston.
Oh, Boston could be fun. Yeah, that'd be fun.
What I think from the Hawks' perspective, though, what's interesting, and it's if you don't want to move Jalen Johnson and you're interested in Giannis, then sure, you're willing to give up Onyeka Okongwu at that point. So we're really talking outside of that discussion. If you're saying he would be an interesting trade candidate, are you also saying then the Hawks need a different type of player at center long term? Because we know it's not KP at this point for them.
Right. And that's where the thing is for me. Like, I think you just need more size, which is ridiculous when you went out and actually acquired KP at 7'3", and you prioritize size in Jalen and Zachary Richichet, Dyson Daniels, who's like a 6'8" off guard. Like, I understand why you go out and align this level of size next to Trey, and Okongwu doesn't really fit that mark, right? Like, he's so productive, but for the fifth time, he's 6'8". So eventually you have to make a call here. Do we start him? Like, he's too good to just routinely have off the bench, or at least, play bench minutes. That's why he's averaging 31 minutes on the year. But at the same time, you have to wonder if we're going to stick with Trey, do we need, as an organization, someone who is significantly bigger?
Yeah, I mean, so the fact, though, that they've been starting him lately, that doesn't do anything. Like, he's been starting for them basically since Thanksgiving on a consistent basis.
No, I think, again, he's too productive not to. But what I'm asking for them is that part of their long-term thing? This could also be a way to just showcase him. If we're being really skeptical, that could be a way of looking at it, that they're just trotting him out there, showing the league, look, this guy can give you 16 and 8, good defense, improving shooter, good contract. Come on, let's get the bits in.
Would you move him as part of an Anthony Davis trade then? Is that someone who Anthony Davis is playing the 5 again? You probably won't want to play it if he goes to Atlanta. Do you view Anthony Davis as a better, and you have to obviously cake in all the risk involved of getting older, the injuries with AD, of course. He's going to need to get paid soon.
Right. That's like, after this year, he's owed $111 million. And he's played how many games for Dallas since getting traded almost a year ago? What
I will say, though, is everyone who's bent out of shape that he has the 27, 28 player option, I would dare him sure, you decline that and go get $70 million a year. No one's giving you that at that age, man. I think we're at a point where I'm just not scared of these older dudes who are saying that, well, I'm going to need my extension. No. If you want the max, if you're not willing to negotiate, if you're willing to negotiate, sure. But if you're a team, you don't acquire Anthony Davis and say, oh, no, like, we need to extend him for the whatever it is, 3 and 2 or 4 and 200, whatever it ends up being. So, yeah. But I'm just trying to think of, because Okongwu was so good, how do you upgrade from him? Because a Jared Allen type isn't going to do it for you, I'm assuming, especially this season.
That's interesting, because do we think that this is Jared Allen's new norm, or do we just think this is a bad year?
So if you're looking at peak Jared Allen, then let's say, do you think that he is a better fit for the Hawks moving forward than Okongwu? Especially, I think the part of this we've danced around a little bit is we just know that Jalen Johnson is their 4, and he might be their tent pole of the future. And so that's what you really do need to build out your center position knowing.
Yeah. I probably would lean in a direction where I am willing to relinquish that deal, assuming I get something back that is, I don't even need a center necessarily. Like, I was saying that they need more size. That doesn't have to come through this trade. You can find different avenues, because then if you trade for a guy who's like a good wing or whatever, then maybe there are a couple of these wings that get freed up in a different trade. Like, it doesn't have to be, the immediate solve. Like, it could be step 1 of a 2-step plan.
And then you're kind of rolling with, at center for the rest of the year, whatever KP could give you there.
And Mogay.
Mogay. Yeah. My first pick is going to be, let's go spicier here. I'm going to say Bam Adebayo.
Ooh,
so,
okay.
I'm curious, just because the Bam and Khalil Ware minutes have not been working this season. minus 19 net rating for the month of December. It's been a disaster for the year. And this is easy to say right now because Khalil Ware is playing so well. But do the Heat, if they're not going to trade for a bigger name, or even if they are, do they view this as, well, is Bam going to be harder to fit if you went after a Giannis? Do they view Khalil Ware he has 2 years left on his rookie scale? He's going to be younger. Do they at all consider him? He doesn't have the playmaking chops of Bam, doesn't have Bam's defensive ceiling, but I'm just sort of wondering, and maybe it's more so not about, is Khalil Ware the impetus behind this, or more so, we don't know what the next great team around Bam is going to look like. Who is the target that we're going after? Who are the players that we're developing in to help us become this behemoth in the Eastern Conference? I've just thought more because I don't love the Bam and Khalil Ware pairing. Bam has to take more threes and gets fewer looks at the rim, and he's also not a high-volume rim player as it is. Defensively, it hasn't been working either, and a lot of that is opponents are shooting an astronomical clip from behind the arc against them. But I've just sort of put a pin in it because Khalil Ware's been in the speculation factory to where would they move him if they could get big name X, if you're throwing out there. But I wondered if there would be maybe not an appetite, but a willingness for Miami to go the other direction if they really think that Khalil Ware can be their anchor big of the future.
Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? He's so intriguing, and he's younger, 2 years left on his rookie contract after this year, which means that's an enormous asset cap-wise. And even if he gets extended to a lot of money, and even if it's the max, it's going to be the fun max for a while, which, by the way, that's getting ahead of ourselves because he's still so young. He needs to do more. I am willing, if I'm Miami, to take calls on Bam. Absolutely, I am. I'm willing to test out what the market is going to offer. What I also need to understand is what am I looking for specifically? Because Bam is that type of guy where if you're going to trade him, you need to have a plan. You need to understand 100% what it is in terms of like the archetype you're going for. Are you looking for the Bam replacement to be more of a wing guy? Do you need someone who runs the show at the point? Like, what is the biggest need there in Miami?
I do think if you're going to trade Bam, you are taking a future-focused package. But I've also kind of thought, and this gets into what is Bam's actual trade value, but could you do Bam to Charlotte, get your own pick back, get more picks, and do you get a LaMelo Ball flyer? Or as part of their thinking in that scenario, we want Bam with LaMelo Ball, and the Heat get one of Con Knipple or Brandon Miller, and they're hoping to have Bam, LaMelo, one of Miller and Knipple, and then there's picks involved around one of those younger players. I want to be clear, Charlotte's never given the indication that they want to accelerate to that degree, not during the Jeff Peterson era, but that was one. I mean, if you're Miami, then, okay, we have our pick back, and that frees you up to do a whole bunch of other things moving forward as well.
Yeah. That's interesting. Let me ask you this though, just to put a bow on it. How do you view the current youth process of the Heat? Do you trust the young guys who are stepping up right now? Do you trust that these players are, well, players are people, are enough of a attraction level to where the Heat can justify, taking that step back?
I think it depends because the closest they're going to come, and we've only just started to see more of Kasper Siakachionis. Right. It just comes back to how do you feel about Khalil Ware as maybe your primary building block, or do you think you're getting your primary building block back as part of a Bam trade? Because I'm still not having the most efficient stretch right now, but I like Pele Larson, I like Jaime Jaquez, I do like Kasper. It's like he's just very creative when he has the ball in his hands. But no, you don't look at this and say, "Oh, we're ready. Like we have our guy, so let's push forward around Khalil Ware." I don't know that I would trust that logic. I think this would be more of an admittance that they don't know how to push forward around Bam to where what is the timeline horizon to field, because they've been frisky at points this year, but I don't view the Heat as a real threat in the East. Like I don't see them beating the Pistons, the Knicks, the Magic across a 7-game series. So that would be and you're also just, we've talked a lot about their flexibility. You have Andrew Wiggins is expiring. Tyler Hero only has 2 years left on his contract, will be expiring after this year, I believe. So I don't know if that Norman Powell is expiring now. Do they view this as sort of a maybe natural pivot point?
Yeah. I wouldn't be opposed to going that route of just pivoting at this stage, because at the end of the day, this team is not in the hunt, as you said. And they always try to be in the hunt, but you have to make the realization that eventually something's got to give. This might be the time to actually do it, because while you have all these young guys on cheap deals or rookie deals, that's when you actually start to make moves, because you can afford to have stuff going on. I would at least prioritize also, in addition to getting like future assets in for Bam, to have expiring deals for sure. So I can go in as the Heat in the summer with financial flexibility to do something else.
I'd be curious what his value would be. So my stance on this, if I'm Miami, is I'm probably just keeping Bam. I don't know that his value is ever going to be easy to measure, just because of how versatile he is on the defensive end, and he does a lot of stuff that just aren't going to show up in not just the traditional box scores, but some of the advanced stuff. And so even let's go back to the team we just spoke about, Atlanta. Would they be interested in him if they're going from Onyeka Okongwu, when you run into the same problem of, well, he's not bigger. You're not looking at him. Was he 6'9"? So he has 1 inch on Onyeka Okongwu. So
for some people, 1 inch matters, Dan.
Which he's better. I want to make that clear. I'm wondering what would be who gets in on this to where they're really like, I named Charlotte as just a thought exercise, but like kind of considering other teams with assets or that might be willing to go in on a big name player. I guess you could throw Atlanta into there. Right. I don't like off the top of my head, like that's where it gets like he would be a fit, to be clear, just anywhere. But I mean, would Portland, like they have Klingon and they have Jan Hansen, are they going to want to be in on that? Would the Spurs probably don't want to pair him next to Wemby? That's not the guy you want to go after. Would Toronto?
Defensively, I love it. Offensively, I don't.
Toronto, like but they seem to want more size out of the center position if they're going to pivot from Poeltl or have it coming off behind him. So that's where it gets. Would Golden State, is that the name that they want to fire everything at? So that could be interesting. But I do run into the issue of, I think Bam's this fantastic player, but with some of these other guys, and I run into the same issue with AD, although I feel like it's for different reasons. I kind of start thinking, who's the team that's coming in with the Godfather? Right. It's the same thing with all these guys. But if I'm Miami, I'm probably more open to it than I've ever been. And to me though, it has not little to do, but it doesn't have as much to do with Khalil Ware as I think it would for some other people.
I agree.
Who's your next name?
I'm going to cheat. The next name is not a name. It's like a group of guys. And it's all the expiring contracts in Chicago. What is like up there? You know, you have Vooch expiring at $21.4 million. Zach Collins, $18 million. Kevin Huerter, also $18 million. Kobe White, $13 million. Ayo Dosunmu, $7.5 million. Javon Carter, $6.9 million. That is a lot of expiring dollars, sir. So, like, what is the deal here? Going into free agency, just let them expire and try to do something? Are they planning to perhaps go out and see if they can make some sort of splash before the deadline using these expiring deals? I just think if you're a creative general manager and if you have the support of ownership, and we know the Bulls have neither, this is such a gold mine to have at your disposal. While you also have all your own picks, by the way. I mean, a competent general manager would look at this situation right now and go, oh, this is delicious. Do we trust the Bulls to actually do anything? Do we think there's something up their sleeves? Do we think teams outside of the Bulls are like looking at certain players here and saying, we need the financial relief this summer? Like, what are we thinking with the Chicago Bulls' expiring contracts?
You make a good point that you can't trust them to do anything with them.
Right.
I guess I've just thought about it too much to consider it being under the radar that they're not going to move enough of them or get anything for them. I guess it is semi-noteworthy that they're more open than ever to moving Kobe White per the latest reporting. And if I had to guess, I do think one of he or a favorite of both yourself and myself, Ayo Dosunmu, will get moved. I don't know what the value is there. And I also, what is the market for, just Kobe White as an example, is making so little. How much bad money are you able to take back in return? And what are the teams that are actively looking to give you bad money and compensate you for such? I think Dallas might be a semi-good example of they could use someone like Kobe White with or without Kyrie Irving coming back on the horizon. They have some contracts they're probably not thrilled about, but are they a team that's going to include draft picks when you look at where they're at in their own competitive timeline? That it'll be fascinating to see what the Bulls settle for in it, because I do agree with you that there's a lot of possibilities there, but I do wonder, again, what is the appetite? Because it seems like there will be more teams looking for short-term salary relief than, oh, we want to clear cap space or just like get out of this salary for this coming summer, which the Bulls, because of their own tax situation, they can give you some of that. They're $13.6 million beneath the tax. And so like there's some flexibility for sure, but I also don't know like what's the team that's itching to, and I guess theoretically it's easier to do what we just outlaid using a Vooch or Kevin Huerter or Zach Collins because they're making so much more money than Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White.
Right. And we need to just bring up the fact before people are like, why were you saying you're like, why are they finally open to trading Kobe White? We've been telling them more or less to trade Kobe White for a while because we know that they can't extend him. The same goes for Ayo. I mean, because of the 140% rule.
I do have a question, and I think he'll get more, but I'm curious to see what he ends up getting because the average salary,
White
like giving him that. Oh, for what's that?
White or Dosunmu?
For either of them. For Dosunmu, you could extend him just because he's not getting more than $15.5 million. I'd be pretty surprised if he gets that. I'm very curious to see where Kobe White ends up. I just want to be clear because I don't know what that deal is. It's like 4 for whatever, and I think his 140% probably goes beyond the average salary at this point, or at least whatever. It's under 100 would be his extension, so he'll probably get. But I'm very curious to see, just with the absence of long-term deals in general that feels like are being signed, I'm very curious to see where his price point ends up.
Yeah, same. There's also some speculation from the fan base that because the team has so many expiring contracts, they're just going to expire and then use the cap space to basically just re-sign some of their guys, which would just be so utterly depressing.
That'd be so funny.
Yeah. Because like,
you know what they should do? They should stack all of them together. You rope in whatever parties you need, and you just call Philly and say, are any of those Clippers picks on the board if we take Joel Embiid or Paul George?
Right. Yep. That's one that I've been thinking about. Oh, I've also, just because they're the Bulls and they love Chicagoans, like I do think there's merit in placing a call to Dallas and just saying, look, we're not going to attach draft picks. We're going to get you, 3 expiring contracts, and then we're going to take Anthony Davis. And you're probably going to like, maybe not though, because it's an immediate $111 million off the cap over the next 2 years for Dallas. That is a lot of money off a cap for a guy who is not playing a whole lot, who's getting hurt, who's getting older. Like, I'm not saying it's going to work. I'm just saying I would understand the approach. Like, if I'm the Bulls, I don't do that. Why would I go out and get that much money on the cap for the next couple of years for a guy who I'm not even sure to play?
So I would do that as Chicago because in my head, would be thinking I can absolutely get first-round picks for Anthony Davis if I move him at some point in another trade. From Dallas's perspective, I just don't. They might be like Kobe White might be appealing the flexibility of getting money off the books as part of the trade, but given Dallas's track record of just what they do with their cap space anyway, I don't know. Like, and it's not like they're going to create all this.
Can you get picks for Davis? Like, honestly,
then you don't move him. You just hope. I would just because first of all,
right.
I think you'll get if you don't get a first, I'd be shocked. There's going to be. It takes one team. There will be a team that will talk themselves into giving up.
Well, okay, if it's like projected to be like a late first, sure, but like a juicy first, are we sure that's going to be a thing?
I don't know, but my guess would be if the benchmark is, let's say, Kobe White, Kevin Huerter, and Nikola Vucevic just throwing contract, I'm going to assume that they can beat that offer.
Assuming someone wants to beat that offer.
And if they can't, as of right now, and I'm
Right.
Dallas, I am rolling this into the offseason.
That's
I don't
fair.
think there's a
That's
rush.
fair. But I do like the Philly idea too. I think that is the smart one, where it's Embiid and the pick, right? Like, because that is just, that's so much more money. Jesus Christ, it's so much more money.
Yeah, it's if you're Philly, are you trying harder to get off the Embiid contract or the George contract? If you're giving up a Clippers pick, I'm probably pushing to get off the Embiid contract.
Oh, Embiid. I am trying to use that to get off of Embiid. And that just sounds so rough for a former MVP, but like, let's just go through it. 58.1 million next year, 62.7 million the year after, and then finally a player option worth 67.4 million. There's no way. There's just no effing way that he's not going to pick that up. He is that full contract is going to see the end of it, and man, like, it's, if the Bulls can get a pick to take him on for those expiring deals, I'm doing it immediately. Absolutely.
Let's see who I've got next up here. This is because this team is fascinating. I'm going to say Dillon Brooks with Phoenix. They don't have any material incentive to just trade him because of how he's so important. I would argue too important when you look at his level of shot creation and shot making. He's in like the 95th percentile of self-created shot making right now, which is, I mean, wow. But also the volume he's shouldering, I just feel like it's not going to be sustainable. But when you don't have the incentive to get worse, I still think from Phoenix's perspective, it probably means little if they're not willing to move Devin Booker, which is a different conversation. Is someone going to give you more than the equivalent of one first-round pick for Dillon Brooks right now? Because I made the case on a previous podcast with Grant that I probably, if I'm Phoenix, it has to be more than one first-round pick if I even want to think of it, because what is the incentive? But there is the push and pull of, well, shouldn't you evaluate? You have to start evaluating your direction outside the context of your draft obligations. And Dillon Brooks is probably not going to be part of the next great iteration of Phoenix. And so I'd just be curious, am I moving him for one first-round pick? No. But I'd be curious just what he could do defensively, even kind of playing up to the 4, and then what he has done offensively, what they could get for him. And if I'm them, I'm absolutely open to hearing about it.
So what's your price tag for Dillon Brooks? Like, what do you want?
I want one real first-round pick, and then I would like the opportunity of, is it an interesting young player? Is it another pick? Like, that's protected. You're not going to get 2 lottery picks for Dillon Brooks type deal. But I think that's what gets me thinking if I'm Phoenix.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. Even if this isn't sustainable, like, he's at least proven something. I don't think he's going to drop down to like 13, 14 points again. Like, he's going to settle into some kind of rhythm. Some of the Kobe shots have gone away, which is good. The defensive intensity remains the same. Big wing, physical.
I mean, I have teams that I would like the Lakers should absolutely be calling about him.
Yeah.
They can only trade one first-round pick. And so does Rui and that first-round pick get – because, I mean, to be honest, the Suns could stand to squeeze more juice out of the 4 rotation, the 4 spot in their rotation. Rui has been – I know a lot of people chalk it up to, well, he's gotten to play with LeBron and then Reeves and then Luka, so his shots are – like, he's just scoring well at every level, like at these astronomical clips. So – or do the Lakers view that as an overpay because they have these cap space aspirations and Dillon Brooks is still on the books past this season. But like that's a team that could use him. I think you could also make a case for, you could make a case for a bunch of teams. I just don't, the thing that I struggle with is, okay, well, what's the team that's giving you definitively more than one first round pick? And do you view, what's also interesting is they're different players, certainly on offense. Who do you view as more valuable? Dillon Brooks or a name who's been mentioned a bunch, Herb Jones?
Oh,
I mean, this version of Dillon Brooks, the answer is Dillon Brooks.
I would say so because, again, look, man, I'm a sucker for two-way play. I can't sit here and say Herb Jones is necessarily, a two-way guy. I'm
sorry, Mort. This is nuts.
What?
This is the list of players who are scoring more efficiently on self-created shots this season than Dillon Brooks.
Go ahead.
Brandon Ingram, that's got to be coming down. But Brandon Ingram,
Yeah.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Donovan Mitchell, Nikola Jokic, Austin Reeves, Luka Doncic. that's fucking
That's wild. Yeah,
sir.
That's wild. Yeah, no, that's crazy. So you were saying one good first and maybe like one protected or a young player. That's wild that we've reached the point, 22 games in for him at least, that's where the value is, because that is not the value I had attached to Dillon Brooks before the season. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good name. That's probably the best name we've had on the list, because what you're lining up here is that's why they should trade him. Go cash in.
I don't, but there's no, I said the Lakers already. I'm just trying to think of what's the team is. He could be semi-interested. He's not bigger. I know you wanted a bigger wing, but Atlanta, he'd be interested there.
Well, I mean,
would you trade? Here's a galaxy brain thing. Would you just trade Zachary Risacher for Dillon Brooks if you're Atlanta? You can't, right? You would just.
Well, I mean, look, Jalen.
Would Phoenix do that?
That's probably the real question. But I mean, if the Hawks really are trying to win, I mean, look at the age of their prime guys like Trey, Kristaps, Jalen, Nikhil. Like those guys are win now ages. They're not young bucks. So would I be opposed to it? Probably not. But to your point, would Phoenix do it?
I don't even want to have this discussion. It's making me uncomfortable.
You embrace the discussion.
Well, I'm just because I don't think I could. If I'm Phoenix, I would probably just do it because I will bet on the upside. And also Dillon Brooks, this level of shot making has to prove, even if you get it for the entire year,
right?
How much longer are you going to get it for? With the Hawks, it's not even the fact that he has 2 years left on his rookie scale, because the number one pick, he's not super duper cheap. Right. But I don't like having Dillon Brooks and Dyson Daniels on the same team. That just gets a little wonky. He'd make a lot of sense. I don't know if they're willing to give up for this, but Charlotte, Dillon Brooks would make a ton of sense. And they do have some extra firsts. I don't know if they'd be willing to throw any on the table.
What is he going to achieve in Charlotte? What is the play?
He plays defense. Like he gives you he's like what everyone used to think Josh Green was on defense, and very clearly is not. To be clear, Josh Green's been injured this season. I know that. Just throwing that out there.
No, that's still, yeah. Well, I mean, they can always use leadership, but geez, I mean, LaMelo and Dillon Brooks.
I think the real issue is I believe you could get a first round pick for Dillon Brooks.
Right.
I think the market to get more for him would be pretty sparse if it exists at all, and that would be why I'd just keep him, because one first round pick if I'm Phoenix, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the trick, like if the Lakers just came in and said, here's our unprotected 2031 first round pick, you probably have to think about it, but you're also not getting an immediate payoff. Now, if that pick is attached to Rui Hachimura, now we're talking. But I honestly don't even think the Lakers would do that trade.
Is there a deal centered around the Cavs where it's like Hunter going out? And let me just see. Do they have some draft picks that are freed up?
They do. They can trade up to two draft picks. Yeah, 30 and 32, right?
Yeah. No, wait. They're 29. They're sending something out to Charlotte.
Oh, that's not a swap? I thought that was a swap. That's my bad.
Let's see. Least favorable. Okay. Well, if they can free up 2 picks, because presumably they're going to be low, is that something? DeAndre Hunter and a pick? Is that anything?
Does Hunter make more than Brooks?
Yes.
Well, I mean,
what is?
And Phoenix is what? They're into the tax, but they're below the. Oh no, they're so they can't. There'd have to be a third team there to make that work. You're getting smaller, but
why? They're under the first apron.
Oh, they're under the first apron. I thought they were into it. That's my bad.
No, they're 6.2 million under. That works.
And so, what is Cleveland giving them?
Hunter, and I guess one of the, or maybe 2. That's what we need to figure out. Probably 1, because Hunter is not, like he's not bad. I like him. I think
you could get 1 in a swap out of Cleveland, maybe, and I don't think they're going to want to give up Jalen Tyson, but he would be interesting.
Yeah. I would probably keep Tyson and just make the money work with Hunter and then a pick. But is that something that could save the Cavaliers season at all? Or am I just kind of trying to save a situation that seems increasingly dramatic?
I do agree that it's probably, I've been a little bit too laissez-faire with my lack of concern for the Cavs.
Same.
But if I'm them, I'm probably at this point, I'm not going to double down on it by giving up like a distant first round pick. And I really do believe that as they get healthier, they'll get better. And I do. Dillon Brooks would certainly. I think you're thinking up the right alley. Now, do you trust him to play? I think he could play in lineups where if you view Mobley as the 5 for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well that's one option at least.
Who's your next name?
So, it's again kind of cheating because of the situation. Fred VanVleet not playing, obviously. The $25 million salary. It's followed up by a player option next year, also $25 million. Presumably, he's gonna pick that up, but nevertheless, that's a big contract. Can you go out and get something if you combine it with, maybe a Tari Easton or whatever? They still have some draft picks going in. They have control of something. I don't want to
He also has implicit no trade clause too, right, so you'd have to send him somewhere to accept. Yeah.
Yeah. So he would have to agree. But I mean, do we think he'd be opposed to it?
Where are you sending him?
That's the thing, right? Because we were just talking. Yeah.
Because if you're a team that's acquiring him, you're not acquiring him to be Fred VanVleet this season or next. You presumably just appreciate, he can come off the books after next season, or we have this big expiring contract. And if that's the way you're thinking, if I'm Fred VanVleet, I'm vetoing anything you put in front of me.
Oh, really? Because he knows.
If you could name a team if you have a team in mind, but
so this is kind of abstract. But I was thinking, you're gonna hate me for this, by the way. You're really gonna hate me. I was thinking DeRozan, because just having another big wing ball handler, creator, shot taker that might alleviate some of the offensive pressure on Şengün and Kevin Durant during the regular season, might be allowing them to step into the playoffs with having carried less of a burden. I don't know if I'm overthinking it. I see your face. That's fine.
DeRozan, Şengün, and Thompson on the same team is
not
just a
great
spacing. Nightmare.
Yeah, no, I realize. It's also what I wasn't loving it, but it was one I had in my mind.
I would be more, maybe you could do something to where if the other team is willing to, there's a wink, Fred VanVleet declines his player option, they're willing to sign him for another 2 years under the same terms. So if you, let's say, just as an example, you're Houston and you're ready to go balls to the wall for Trey Murphy. And Fred VanVleet doesn't want to be on the Pelicans, I'm sure. But if you're getting Trey Murphy and they're going to give you a bunch of stuff, Fred VanVleet saying, we'll pay you. We'll give you a 2-year, $50 million deal if you decline your play. Or even, at this point, 2 years and 40, just to guarantee himself the extra whatever. I think it would have to be that type of scenario. And even then, I don't know that VanVleet's made a ton of money. I don't know that he would accept a trade to a team like that, which is where this gets super challenging.
Yeah, again, why would he go to the Kings? It's fair. What is the team? What is the team that makes it attractive for Fred?
And he doesn't make enough. If there's multiple players involved and you're 3 and 4 team legs, and Boston says, we're not putting pedal to the metal this year. We want to trade Anthony Simons plus salary X. You take back Fred VanVleet, who would be useful on your team for next season, but that just the moving parts that would need to be involved to make it worthwhile for Boston. And then you're also, this is predicated on, does Houston really want Sam Hauser? Do they want Anthony Simons? So that kind of, it'd probably be easier to strike something up with Brooklyn. But I don't know why Fred VanVleet would accept a trade to Brooklyn.
Right. So perhaps he was just an awful name to bring up?
I have. Do I go big or so? I did just do a relatively. Dillon Brooks is like semi-mainstream. Here we go, Mort. Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question. Okay. Do the Grizzlies have their franchise centerpiece on their team right now?
No, not even close.
Then what is the end game? Especially knowing that even when you account like by minute, just Jaren Jackson Jr.'s touches are down. They're not leaning on him as much offensively as they were. A lot of the same problems that you don't like remain: the fouling, the rebounding. They renegotiated and extended him, presumably because they view him as this tentpole. At the same time, you don't get to say this as Memphis. You traded Desmond Bane. I agree that they weren't good enough to win a title as currently constructed. You don't get to make that trade and say that you're all about winning now. You're taking a longer view. And so I'm just curious and there are teams, I think you could get a lot for Jaren Jackson Jr. I think San Antonio would be interested in him. I think Detroit would love him. Like, he'd be an excellent, because what are you worried about? You're worried about physicality. I guess the rebounding in San Antonio, you're not super strong with him and Wemby, but they would still be an excellent fit together on the defensive end. But
yeah.
I mean, even offensively, they both can space the floor. As I don't know what Jaren Jackson Jr. is necessarily taking away from Wemby.
No, for the Spurs specifically, it's the lack of playoff success or playoff production rather for Triple J that I'm slightly concerned about. Like, I want someone who has proven that he can step his game up in the postseason.
I do think would be another team. I think that we're in 3+ first round pick territory with Jaren Jackson Jr. And I think they probably shouldn't. Like, Chicago would absolutely be in on him. I think Charlotte would maybe take a look at him. I said Detroit already. He would be kind of interesting. They don't need him, though, so I'm not even going to name that team. Right. I mean, would the Clippers just put their 2 tradable first-round picks on the table plus another swap and then salary in there to go get him? Would Miami, they already have Khalil Ware and Bam, but would they be thinking about, well, we think Jaren Jackson Jr. and Bam make more sense? Milwaukee does not have the assets to do anything with that. Yeah.
Is he like a Lakers guy? Because when you're thinking about like the fit alongside Luka, that has always been the guy. If you want to pair Jaren Jackson Jr. with someone, that is it, or rather giving Luka like a real running mate. It's been Jaren Jackson Jr. Just, the 6'11", the athleticism, the 3-point acumen, the rim running, like that is the Luka Doncic fit. But how do you get him there? What deal makes sense? Because they can't offer the amount of picks and they don't have the young players. What the hell is the deal?
It would be this summer. Unless Memphis really wants Austin Reeves, which I don't know with him about to be a free agent. I don't know why they would.
Right.
This summer they can trade 26, 2031, and 2033. And so if you're including swaps, there might be more to it there. What about Toronto? Him and Scotty could work. He could play with Poeltl. Yeah. But I guess if you're looking to beef up the solo, if he's your second string 5, he has to be able to handle that. But if you're looking to get bigger and burlier, that's not the way he plays. We know that. Does Utah take a look and say, hey, Kessler, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Lauri Markkanen are our front court of the future?
That'd be fun. I wouldn't hate that. And like, you would have to relinquish some of the young guys, but like they have so many and they have picks. Here's an odd one for you. Like, I don't know how they make the value work. Should the Wolves be all in on making Jaren Jackson Jr. the Rudy Gobert replacement? Is there something there to it?
Man, I just don't know how you get. Right. They have no first-round picks to trade. So the answer is no. If you can't promise a first-round pick.
Right. And Dillingham, like that might have been their one chip to play, but he just doesn't have the value.
No, not even close. What about, because they got some Bucks pick commitments. What about Portland?
Yeah. So yeah, who is being sent out here? Because like,
maybe is it a package built around Scoot? And it's if they're moving Jaren Jackson Jr., you have to imagine John Morant's on the table.
Yeah, for sure. So they just went center in the last 2 drafts. They also have Jeremy Grant. They have Denny, who's also like a 3-4. Still have Time Lord. They had to move a lot of pieces around, but I don't hate it. Like what? But again, like what is the deal? Memphis,
I think you're probably using Jeremy Grant as the primary
Yes.
which means that you're going to have to include more picks. Sort of what when Memphis made the trade with Orlando wasn't just 4 first-round picks for Desmond Bane. It was we took on KCP and Cole Anthony.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a lot of draft equity to relinquish. Is there somewhere where they have the picks, they have the deals?
So this is
tough.
Maybe I don't know why they would just be so expensive and this would go against I feel like every way they build their team financially. But the Pacers, Siakam, Halliburton, Jaren Jackson Jr.
That'd be fun. How do you get there?
I mean, they have picks to give up, but you're looking at, I guess, Andrew Nembhard and Obi Toppin have to be the primary money going out.
Do you give up the 26 pick? Do you actually say if we give up the 26 unprotected?
Oh wow. No, they're not gonna do that because they would rather roll the dice, I'm assuming, just based off how expensive their core could get moving forward. They're gonna say we want the shot at the cost controlled talent.
I would too. I would always choose that over Jaren Jackson Jr. But if you were saying like the price is for 3 firsts, at least that's a conversation you have behind closed doors.
Cleveland would be an interesting team over the summer when they have more first-round pick equity available, and maybe they're open to moving Garland or Jared Allen. And right now they're just so far into the second apron, you would need a straight-up contract to get Jaren Jackson Jr., which they just don't have.
Right.
I could see Chicago doing something stupid, like 3 first-round picks and Buzelis or something. I could just see
God. That would be horrifyingly stupid. Yes.
I just don't. They don't have the money to make it work. I mean, they do, but you have to ask yourself, what's the trade-off? Boston would be fun.
Boston would be good.
Derek White is gone. I mean, can you get there without what? Because you have Simons at 27.5, right? Or is he 28?
27.5, I think.
So, I mean, you're more than halfway there.
Yeah.
Hauser's another, 10, 12?
10, I believe.
So you're at 38. Yeah, you're not getting. I don't know. That's pretty close. I don't know how many picks you're putting on the table there, but yeah, so Simon's at 27.6 plus 10. You're at 37.6. After that,
you also shave off some luxury tax stuff there in Boston, too.
Yeah, well, Jaren Jackson Jr. is way more expensive than 37 now. So.
Oh, not this year, too? Wasn't he at 35 this year? Or
He's at 30. Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah, that would be interesting. So you could get there without trading Derek White, Jaylen Brown, or Jason Tatum if you wanted to.
The bump is next year.
I forgot about that. That it was the renegotiation and extend. I totally forgot for a minute.
Right, exactly. The extension in of itself is like next year. Right.
I would very much like him in Detroit. I think because you're going to have one of Duren or Isaiah Stewart there after the fact. You could probably even get to the money without giving up either of them since he's at 35.
Right.
So you have your physicality element. And he gives you another, he could play the 4, he could play the 5, and then he also, we know, based off the past couple seasons, he has more self-creation in him. Detroit might be my favorite potential team for him. Are they willing to go in? And they can give you one intriguing young player, whether it's Ron Holland, Jaden Ivey. I would assume Asar Thompson's off the table, but I don't know.
So I would probably go with the picks route if I can, and then that's Tobias Harris and what in terms of the salary components?
I'm including. I don't think you're getting out of that deal in part because if you don't want to trade Stu or Duren, you're going to have to include, I think, one of Ivy or Holland.
Then I'm probably relinquishing Holland.
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, Ivy.
I guess in theory, they could just get to the money with that. I mean, because Harris, you said 26.6, and then Duncan Robinson's 16.8. Levert's at 14.1. So they don't. If they really just wanted to overload Memphis and say, hey, there's no bad contracts here. They are basically all functionally expiring except for Levert has that other year left on his deal. Here's salary and all the picks.
Yeah. I had Lauri Markkanen pegged for the Pistons, but I will concede, although I am not a fan of Jaren Jackson Jr., the defensive upside there next to Duren with a big guard like Cade. If also Thompson still is like on the team after that trade, yeah, I mean, they can get right back to their old glory days of that, identification or what do you call it? Basically, their identifier of being a defensive first team. Is there enough firepower offensively in that unit? In the regular season, there is, because Jaren Jackson Jr. in the regular season, at least, is a strong scorer in the play. Hey, I'm going to bring up the same points, man, because it's real. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. He becomes substantially worse in the playoffs. So far, that's what we've seen. So I have absolutely no reason to sit here and be optimistic because all the data points differently. So why would I go against the data? But the Pistons might just be the team that could put him in like the right spot in terms of like the offensive totem pole to make that work.
You're betting a lot offensively on Asar Thompson or if Jaden Ivey is still there then. But what you're also running into is, so Jackson begins his big deal. Cade is already on his big deal. Right. And then you have to worry about Duren going into free agency and Jaden Ivey going into restricted free agency with him. And Asar Thompson's extension eligible this summer. Right. So maybe Jaden Ivey just isn't going to be that expensive to keep, and that's the rationale because of the injuries. But that would be the gamble that you're making is, or maybe it's part of the logic as to why you try to include Jaden Ivey as part of an asset in that trade because you don't plan to pay him anyway. I just don't know what Memphis's interest in him would be.
I have no idea what Memphis is doing. So like, who cares?
They have one of the fuzziest time, and the other thing that complicates is they've just been friskier lately too. So it's just all right. Well, now what are they going to do? But I love Cedric Howard. I just don't know. And Zach Edey before he got injured again was just mountainous. I just don't look at any of their guys now and say I'm not building my team around Jaren Jackson Jr. or Cedric Howard. They're as options 2, 3. Sure, I think that healthy Ja Morant would still be their best centerpiece option, and I don't know that such a version of Ja Morant really exists anymore either, which is further complicating matters. Who's your next name?
So it's funny we were talking about the Pistons because I was thinking about Tobias Harris just in terms of as an expiring contract. 26.
So you're going against what you said at the top. Then it's where you're looking at just players who are going to be moved.
I mean, players could be attractive also for contractual reasons. Again, teams that are looking to rid themselves of long-term money. I'm not sitting here and saying, oh, package Tobias Harris. That's probably going to be the play. Let's be real. I am asking questions, Dan. Just wondering out loud, could there be interest in Tobias Harris as the expiring contract that he is at $26.6 million? Is there some team out there that is looking to shed money this coming summer and are like, okay, look, we need to go get a guy who expires in that chunk of change, who isn't going to be a part of our future, that we can get for not a lot of a lot of conversation. So maybe someone who runs a year longer but is better, and if so, who?
Well, I guess what I'm having trouble wrapping my head around is do you have suggestions? Otherwise, I don't know what.
Right. So I'm going to have, like, again, I don't love the spacing. I'm going to go back to the Sacramento Kings with DeRozan because I really want DeRozan off the Kings, but I can't find a fucking home for him, Dan, so I'm trying to squeeze him in wherever I can. Someone who is able to take and make shots, but the thing is he's just not a three-point shooter, so I don't love the fit. But he can create off his own accord. He can't get into the post. He can't get into the mid-range area. I kind of like the fact that you just add someone else in there who's pretty secure also with the ball. He's not a high turnover guy. Cade, let's be real, has some turnover issues. Like perhaps a presence of DeRozan negates some of that. But I also see like the spacing issues are real. He's old as dirt. Like what is the vision there?
What's the vision with DeRozan?
No, that was Detroit. What I'm asking.
Well, yeah, but it's just, and then also you as a Jaden Ivey guy too. that I feel like fudges up his fit a little bit more. And then as Detroit, are you being compensated in this? Because DeRozan's guaranteed $10 million next year. And do you want DeRozan on your roster? Now, if they view DeRozan as an asset, it's a different story. And then you're also creating probably more of a void in the front court as to who's the guy you want next to Duren and or Stewart.
Yeah, DeRozan is smaller. That is true. I was thinking the talent disparity between the two would actually be the winning formula for Detroit here, because that's where you pay the extra $10 million coming in next year. That's why you kind of swallow that, is because you get a talent upgrade. You could also go in a different direction, I guess. Anthony Simons at 27.6. Is that something just like a flame? Again, it goes against the Jaden Ivey situation. But if I'm Detroit, I'm still looking for something more of a scorer. I understand that they do have Cade, who gets you a lot of points every single game. I get that. Still need someone with spacing capabilities also. Need someone who can just put the ball in the hoop. But he's also an expiring, so that kind of goes against that element. I'm wondering if Tobias Harris has value just as an expiring contract or at all.
I'm sure he might have value as an expiring contract. I just don't view Detroit as a team that's trying to take on money they don't necessarily because the vision, it sounds like, is you're trying to get the Pistons assets for Tobias Harris's salary, which they would try to do, but I think the asset acquisition would be they don't want picks for taking on a player they don't necessarily want. They want a better player than Tobias Harris. And I would think that they would want someone who plays his position as the primary upgrade, and Anthony Simons and DeMar DeRozan, just like that doesn't work. If they really wanted Jeremy Grant back for some reason, they could do something like that. I just don't. That's not going to move the needle for them, in my opinion.
If John Collins had one more year on his deal, I think that would be
why they have Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren. I just don't. I guess I
don't consider neither of those two like real fours, and I also don't consider them natural scorers. I think Collins is grotesquely underrated as a scorer. He can pick and pop, he can pick and roll. There's a lot there. Like he even got like the mid range push shot, and I would just like to see them do something. And what I'm also asking the question is, in terms of Tobias Harris, is just what is his value? Like, does any team look at Tobias and like trade him for the player that he is, or is it exclusively the contract?
I think it's the latter. I don't even know if I'm surprised that you even think that would be a debate. I guess is really what I'm struggling with. I didn't look at Tobias Harris as someone who has a ton of standalone value, who's been solid for the Pistons, and I think even if you're going from Harris to Collins, Harris has way more self-creation juice than Collins in a pinch, and so I don't know that would help the Pistons either.
That's fair.
Let's go to my next name, and I am going to. That's probably too nuclear for this discussion. Let's talk about Peyton Watson.
Oh, okay.
Headed into restricted free agency this summer, the Nuggets are, with 11 players on the books next year, are right up against the second apron already. They've paid Christian Brown. I think Peyton Watson's had a really good season overall. Yes. The three's been falling at a higher clip. We've seen a little bit more of him on the ball. We know for the most part what he is defensively. I think Denver can look at this from a few ways, but the predominant ones would be we're not going to pay him because of where we're at financially and who we've already committed to. But also, do they view him as a vehicle through whom they can get off the final 2 years of Zeke Naji's contract? And I've proposed this trade like 40 times over, but is there some variation of Peyton Watson, Zeke Naji for Ayo Dosunmu? Is that something the Bulls consider? Can you include, they have a second round pick they could trade? Does that get you there? And I'm also just curious. I'm also just curious as to what would be I think a lot of teams would take flyers on Watson, but because there is so little competition in restricted free agency these days, would teams place slightly more value than normal on knowing, we get this guy and we basically get to negotiate with him, not having to deal with other suitors, because that's just not how RFA works anymore, to where it's not just Yeah, you do have to pay him, so that's part of the calculus. But you're not worried about him going into the open market like just a bigger name. I'm trying to think of like an unrestricted free, like Tobias Harris, your favorite guy, Mort, who's going to be an unrestricted free agent and can sign wherever he wants.
I love that framing in terms of, does he actually have more trade value because he's going to be a restricted free agent? Because that
definitely than more if he was going to be a UFA for sure, right?
Sure, yes, but that it's funny because that wasn't the thinking 5 years ago, right? And then the RFA market just died, and it's interesting to see how now that type of situation can be viewed as an asset. I think that's incredibly interesting, just for like the structure of the league moving forward in terms of decision making. So I've always loved the idea of Ayo Dosunmu in Denver. Always. I think that is like his primary landing spot. For Peyton Watson, man, do you ever really want to go big wing for, sort of half undersized guard? Do you ever want to go?
When Spencer Jones exists, maybe you're a little bit more open to it.
Fair enough. He's intriguing to me, Watson.
Yeah, which is, if your stance is Denver is no, we're not doing that. I totally understand.
Yeah.
But are you going to pay him? Because there's no just, you could, let's say there's a team that's just willing to take Zeke Nashi. You're not escaping the second apron next year that way, because you still need to fill out your roster, and Peyton Watson, I'm assuming, is going to get more than $12 million a year.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious as to, they've been willing to pay their own guys in the past, but if they sign him, it sort of makes me wonder, all right, maybe they're going to stay in the second apron for next year.
Right.
Or is there another type of, not sell-off, but are they deciding to move on? Is it, we're just not going to, what's Cam Johnson's value now after this year? I have a tough time imagining Cam Johnson, Peyton Watson, and Christian Brown all being on the Nuggets beyond this season. And normally I'm probably just zeroing in on Peyton Watson because I don't think all three of those guys are in Denver next season. And if Watson's the guy that's not going to be there, are you comfortable letting him walk for nothing? Is this a situation where you pay him and then you're just confident that you could move him before the 2027 draft? If you're looking to get out of the second apron, are you just, maybe they're open to paying the second apron next year? I don't like that. It would surprise me, but it wouldn't shock me.
If Ayo Dosunmu had been on a longer deal, I would have pulled the trigger. The fact that he's going into unrestricted free agency.
Do you think he's going to cost? Well, if you're getting off Zeke Nashi's deal in the process, though, that's also part of the value.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair because I liked the deal at the time. I do not like it now. That was bad.
Who do you think gets more in free agency, Peyton Watson or Ayo Dosunmu?
Probably. Am I really going to say Ayo? Yeah, I probably am because Peyton Watson is, a restricted free agent, so he's going to be
right. I do still think that positionally, I think it'll end up being Watson. But if I were running a team, I'm probably willing to pay right now anyway. If you see something in Watson's upside, I think he could do even more on the ball if he's in a different setting. Maybe you're willing to pay him boatloads more.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I just think I'm with you in thought. But in practice, I think Peyton Watson will be the player with a higher AAV.
In isolation. Yeah, I think that's reasonable because, big wings, especially two-way guys, which I think you can argue that Peyton Watson is a two-way player at this point at least, unless the season is an outlier. I guess we'll find out. But that just should be a little bit more interesting.
Is this enough? And it kind of steps on the toes of what would be, I think, were some of my candidates, so maybe I'll throw them up on here. But if you put Watson, your second round pick on the table, or maybe even Watson straight up, you have to figure out a way to make the money work. Does that get you any of the Utah Jazz guards who might be interesting? Like if Isaiah Collier was your backup or Keontae George was your backup. I think Keontae George has probably played too well by and large this season. Yeah. But Peyton Watson and that second, or is it Peyton Watson and a swap to get Keontae George, who only has another year left on his rookie scale? Do you think he could play with Murray? That would be an open question, but they have Collier. They also have, I don't think that this is what they want out of that spot, but like Shvi Luke has been fantastic this season. You also have Bryce Sensabaugh's role has been a little all over the place. I think Will Hardy has done a good job like finding ways to get a lot of these guys minutes, but there's a very clear, because there's Walter Clayton's there, and I mentioned Shvi and Bryce Sensabaugh, Isaiah Collier, Keontae George. That's why I also view the Jazz as guards. I'm just looking at the guards and saying, oh, is there some trade possibilities here?
The fact that you even bring up Keontae George does surprise me. I mean, I understand he's playing for a bad team, but 24, 4, 7, getting to the line almost 8 times a game. Yeah.
Grant and I actually, when we did our trade value draft, I think I drafted Keontae George with my last pick because my rationale is I think he's been really good this season.
Right.
And if I'm the Jazz, I want no part of paying him to run my offense moving forward. I think if your plan is to keep Lauri Markkanen, if it's to keep Walker Kessler, I don't know that being in the Keontae George business makes sense financially or really functionally. And I think it would be a lot different. I was so high on Keontae after his first year. If he was a more effective pull-up jump shooter to where I think there's a trade-off between having, look at what he can do away from the ball. But you also, if he's running your offense, the passing has gotten so much better this year. The decision-making, the passing, it's great. But he's about to be extension eligible. And where are you at in your competitive timeline? So it was a sell high from the Jazz is how I view it. I don't view Peyton Watson as selling high, which is why he wouldn't be the name. But if you are committed to Keontae George, Peyton Watson for Isaiah Collier, are either of these teams considering it? I think Peyton Watson's probably the more valuable archetype. Collier remains turnover prone. But when that dude gets downhill, man, can he pass.
Yeah. What is the trade value in a vacuum for Keontae George?
Do you think so? Here's one I threw out. Anyone who listened to that episode, shout out for sticking with HardwoodKnocks, but also I'm sorry for repeating myself. Is there something to maybe there needs to be a lower end first of all, but like Tari Eason for Keontae George?
I love Tari, and that almost feels low considering what George is doing right now.
So what if it was Houston says, here's a shitty first round pick and Tari Eason?
That's easier. Yeah, that's easier to swallow. Yeah, I like the framework. I do like the framework. That's not bad.
My thought process was, though, is there a team you could get first round equity? And look, if Jazz fans want to sit here and say, if you're getting Tari Eason, you need to have the discussion if you're Utah. But if you're sitting here as a Jazz fan, and I think that you're right in saying we want a mid-end first-round pick for someone who might be as good as Keontae George is right now, if not probably worse than he's playing, I think that's totally fair. Utah's in such a weird spot. They're going to have to lose their way out of giving away this year's draft pick, which is not a position that they wanted to be in. So I'm just asking questions, but it doesn't even have to be him. Does Isaiah Collier have any trade value? Because if you're trusting in Keontae George, you could find ways to get Isaiah Collier minutes, but what's the end game with your backcourt rotation?
Mm-hmm. What is the end game with this entire roster situation, frankly?
Mort, I think that's a totally fair question.
Right? It's a good question. It's interesting, like where the trade value lies there, because it's so difficult to gauge players who are doing what George is doing on such a bad team. Like
and also the on-off numbers are not pretty.
No.
But that's, again, is that a symptom of the situation, or is it something that they should read into? I more so am incredibly encouraged by the way he played. I hate getting into this. Well, look at what he's going to cost after next season.
Right.
But do you want to pay Keontae George 15 to 20% of the salary cap if you don't know that you're going to be good? I don't view him as that type of a pillar. That's just where I'm at.
15%. If it starts at 15%, and I have like a contract that just stays flat, so the cap percentage goes down every year, I wouldn't be against it. 15%?
Right. And that feels low. Right. If he's playing like this, no?
Right. Yeah. No. But like we've seen it before. We have seen, shorter guards get a little shafted in terms of like
fair. That's fair.
I mean, I know that he's got more on-ball chops than Cam Thomas, obviously. But like,
maybe we should look at it through this perspective. His max salary in an extension would project, and he's not getting it. If he does, I have lots of questions.
Right, same.
$44.4 million. What is the number? And we could put a percentage of the salary cap to that season, which right now is projected to be, when it kicks in, $177.6 million. I think the dollar figure helps contextualize, okay, would he be willing to just take 15% of the salary cap, which is, that's like Anthony Simon's money, 26.6. I'd probably do that if I'm Utah.
That is actually Tobias Harris money, 26.6. Just saying.
He's not a smaller guard, though. I was trying to find a good comp for that.
That's, yeah.
Now, if you go 20, that's $35.5 million.
Yeah, no, that 15 seems more. What's 12.5%? That seems more reasonable. Or maybe that's just, it's just straight on 100 million over 4 years straight, like 25.
So you're hovering a little below 15%.
Yeah.
Of the salary cap. And look, if he's willing to sign that, I guess the number sounds like a lot, but when you're contextualizing it against the percentages, I'm wondering if he even signs a 4 for 100 extension.
Right. Yeah. Seems fair.
Who do you have next?
So my very last name is Mitchell Robinson. So I'm wondering, because again, the expiring contract of it all, like he's become pretty crucial when he's on the floor, because he is their primary interior defender, because Towns is just not that. I think he's had a really good year defensively. I think the shot selection, as always, around the rim, that is such a huge opportunity for him and for the Knicks at large. He still blocks 3-pointers. He's still one of those versatile, athletic defenders. I love what he does give you on the Knicks, but is he going to look elsewhere this summer? Because if he is, the Knicks are not really in a position to go out and find a replacement. So do you use that contract right now to go out and find someone on a longer-term deal?
If you could. I guess the problem is they don't have value. That's a good name. I would disagree strongly that he is still an athletic defender and has been good defensively this year. I think he's starting to get better now, but he was pretty inconsistent and rough for a while. If he's going to continue to shoot free throws the way he's been shooting them the past few games, then he's a lot more valuable.
Right. Yeah.
I think
that's interesting.
What you run into with him that I don't think we ran into with any of your other expiring contract guys is this feels like a classic case of he's more valuable to the Knicks than any team could compensate them for right now. Because if you trade him, who is the longer-term solution that you're going after? People have said Daniel Gafford. I think Daniel Gafford's more likely to get played off the floor in certain playoff matchups than a Mitchell Robinson. And you're fundamentally, the Knicks are so, against certain teams, just with the physicality you could still play with and the offensive rebounding, you are kneecapping a huge part of your identity. I share all your same concerns about what are you going to pay this guy as the team gets more expensive. But I also think that's kind of, it could work to your advantage in free agency, because who's the team that wants to dedicate cap space to someone who probably can't play both ends of back-to-backs? You're never really able to play him over 25 minutes a game. The Knicks have had him on this maintenance program all season. It's a really good name. I just struggle to find the team that should say, and then what are you going after? Because you said it, you do need to get a big man.
Yeah.
Just because Gershon Yabusele's been awful. Towns is not the interior defender. Right. Ariel Huckporty's not there yet, and who knows if he ever will be. Are you downgrading because you're getting someone who's on a longer-term deal? Is someone going to come in and be as valuable to you per minute as Mitchell Robinson, or are you making it from he's cost-controlled moving forward, and we know that his availability is going to be a little bit more in check?
Yeah, there isn't like a one player who just jumps to mind, right? That's the challenge of it all. Man,
like, could you do something?
Yeah,
I guess, let's say Mitchell Robinson and Pacome Dadier for money, the Wizards' second-round pick this year and next year, Does that get Yves Missi and Sadiq Bey from New Orleans?
If it does, I am pulling the trigger immediately.
I think it's a conversation for the Knicks. Just but Mitchell Robinson is way better than Yves Missi, but Yves Missi's so cheap. He'll do some of the offensive rebounding stuff for sure.
And he's so young. Like, he's going to improve as well. Like, that's why I'm baking that in.
And Sadiq Bey, because the other problem with the Knicks is they have we're veering into territories where you're trying to upgrade a position that shouldn't actually be a problem in theory. And it's become problematic, or not problematic, but something to circle because of the Gershon Yabusele performance this year. But they could use another wing. I know everyone wants them to get another backup ball handler too. And if you don't believe in Tyler Kolek, then yeah, sure, they need that as well. And so addressing a problem that really shouldn't be a problem is also, okay, is this taking, because if you're including the Wizards pick with Mitchell Robinson to get X, you're not addressing the other one. So Sadiq Bey he's not defensively what you want as a bigger wing, but it's 6'7", 6'8", can shoot threes. That would be, I think it's a conversation. I think it's more of a conversation. I don't think it's a no-brainer for either side. My guess would be that New Orleans would probably say no, just because you have Derek Queen. Why do you want Mitchell Robinson? You're doing that deal because you believe in what the Washington Wizards sucking, and what do you like Bacom Dadier? So,
I mean, of course the Pelicans would be declining that deal. They need to send out, a first rounder to get the whole thing.
They need to
done.
attach something to make it work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do think you're right that that's a deal the Knicks are probably more likely to say yes to than the Pelicans. Another name I would have for us to consider, how spicy do I want to be here? Give me a level of nuclear between 1 and 10.
Absolutely top-level nuclear. Give me the hottest shit you have.
Okay, Draymond Green.
Oh, okay. That is nuclear. All right.
If you're the Warriors, and it's not, I think that, well, maybe he does. He probably does have more trade value than Jonathan Kuminga, even though he's over a decade older. If you're the Warriors, and if you sit here as the Warriors and say, we had a great run, we're just going to be kind of sort of relevant and interesting, and that's just what we are, we're not going all in. But if your idea is to actually win another title with Steph, you have to have the conversation of, is it time to move on from Draymond Green? Because Jonathan Kuminga's money, to me right now, you correct me if I'm wrong, he's younger, there's still some upside there, and the team option, flexibility for his next team, but also it's a number that's like large enough that you can envision being able to keep him moving forward. His value is predominantly from that flexibility, though. It's not, I need Jonathan Kuminga on my team. I think he's a building block. So what can you do? And also, he's just not expensive enough to get you in the names for some of the hottest guys that are out there. And so if you put Draymond Green on the table, I don't know if he's bringing you back a ton of value, maybe if he's going to a third team, but now this opens up all sorts of different matching opportunities to where Draymond Green versus Kuminga is just a difference, or are you attaching them together when you're looking at the money, and then you're throwing like your picks, a Brandon Podziemski on the table. But Green's at 25.9, and that's with Jonathan Kuminga at 22.5. So you're really looking at almost $50 million in money that you're able to send out that way, plus whatever else you'd attach. Is that worth going the Anthony Davis route? Or just something like, is that, again, it could be a different player and there's just more teams and moving parts involved. But if I'm the Warriors and I'm serious about reopening my title window, because I think as currently constructed, I don't even know that they have lightning in a bottle potential once they get to the postseason. I'd argue probably not. That's the move that you have to start thinking about. And it's not even so much about, well, look at what Draymond could get us, so much as, well, we need more matching money. And at this point, if you're consolidating into a star, someone like Moses Moody might be more important to you just from a salary and fit perspective. Because with Draymond, there's a lot of the bigger thing, because the money's fine. I don't mind the money. It's the fit, the complications of, you're already wondering, all right, how many minutes can we get away with him and Jimmy Butler playing together? And if you add in another non-shooters, they have to be Quentin Post if you want a 5. Well, can it ever be like the minutes with Al Horford? And if you're going to go out and get an Anthony Davis or another big, if that big is not Miles Turner or a healthy Kristaps Porzingis, those questions kind of become exacerbated.
Yeah. I love your point that it's as a salary piece and not Draymond in and of itself. I think that is such a crucial difference. The Davis thing. do we trust Davis in this situation? Do we trust that he is going to be healthy, is going to be good enough, is going to turn them into that title contender, to give them that last push? That is going to be my question. Also, do you have the backing of Steph on this? Because that too is going to matter. Like,
well, for Steph, I think it's an either or, and I don't know if maybe it's not Davis then, but if they ever wanted to get into the Giannis sweepstakes where they're throwing every pick pods on the table, you almost need Draymond Green or Jimmy Butler to go out in that deal to make the math work. If they wanted to get in on Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yeah, you need both. You need both. I mean, look, the Kuminga deal was always made with the mindset of getting moved later. That relationship, I still presume, has to be over, right? Have we seen anything that is like...
I think the only reason that it wouldn't end as soon as he's eligible to be traded, or at least by the February 5th trade deadline, is that there's no deal out there, more so than the Warriors believe that this could be salvaged.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And for his sake, too, I think that ship is sailed for both parties. It's a gamble. I'm not going to sit here and say it's not a gamble. And if it's for Davis, at least there's a vision. I get it. Like, if he's healthy alongside Steph and Jimmy, oh my God. I mean, that would be ridiculous. You have like the primary guard, you have the primary wing, you have the primary big. That's always like a really strong starting point. Draymond, you know what? Screw it. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. What is the ultimate, like, or not ultimate? Do you attach something else here? Do you attach draft compensation, or do you just say no? These are the players. Like, you're getting a younger player because Kuminga is basically the value that you're getting for Dallas.
With the caveat, we know that there needs to be other moving parts because of both Dallas's and Golden State's salary situation. Because Davis is at 54.1. I think Golden State needs to be the team that said. I mean, Draymond only has a year left on his deal, though. At 20, he's a player option for next season at 27.7. Wow, that came up quickly. I feel like he just signed his extension. I think the Warriors have to include. There's at least a first round pick in there, in addition to other salary parts. Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. And then they're probably hoping. I don't know, if you're Dallas, are you hoping Draymond Green declines his player option, or are you hoping he picks it up and then maybe you could reroute him for additional value next year? Or are you trying to be good? Top draft pick, Cooper Flag, Kyrie's back, you have Draymond.
It's a good, like, Draymond would be a nice mentor for Flag. I mean, I gotta give him that.
Part of me, I'm wondering if I'm overthinking this, because I'm getting on my end more hesitance from Golden State's part because of something you mentioned, where it's, are you willing to deal with the emotional fallout of moving Draymond Green, and then the payoff is Anthony Davis, who's just the mother of all question marks as well.
Right. That's probably the crux of the matter, is that fan base, as well as Steph, is like, they're going to want someone who's more, what's the word? Safe? Is that a fair word to use here?
But it's also just like, because aside from Giannis, who I don't think either of us believes is truly going to get traded this season unless he finally asks for it, rather than saying his agents are going rogue, apparently, since that's something that agents definitely do. They don't. That was sarcasm for anyone who cannot detect it. Who is what are you hoping for? And what are you waiting for? Your offers as Golden State could probably get more attractive in the offseason, but who is the name if it's not Giannis that you're waiting? Anthony Davis is probably, we mentioned Jaren Jackson Jr. again, but I don't see like the other, because we could talk about Trey Murphy, we could talk about Derek White, but the issue that Grant and I ran into is, I don't know what's more likely, that a Derek White or Trey Murphy turns Golden State into a contender, or you catch lightning in a bottle with Anthony Davis and he turns you in or gets you back to title contention. I think it's the Davis outcome still.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Do you think there's a lesser deal to be made that could get them back into sort of that mindset? Like, this is just off the top of my head, because this was something that was a framework that was discussed over the summer, like a Kuminga for Vooch deal. Like, Vooch obviously is older. He's not, as good as he used to be, but he's a floor spacer. He can pass from the high post. Like Horford seems done, right? Like when he's playing, that just does not look great. At least Vooch is productive, efficient. Is that something? Anything?
If they want to make a move like that and just they want to be washed of the Jonathan Kuminga situation, I totally understand it, but that's not watching this team
enough, right?
Yeah, that's just. I was going to ask. I'll pose this question: do you think that Derek White or Trey Murphy, if they were in theory able to trade for them, even does it? Because if the answer is no for them, the answer is no for Vooch.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Like Trey Murphy, I think could move the needle.
I think he moves the needle, but do you think that he brings enough alternative on ball stuff? That's still the struggle with. They're winning the minutes. Jimmy Butler plays without Steph, but it is not because of their offense at all.
No, but don't you think Trey has gotten better as an on ball?
I do. I'm just wondering, is it enough? Because I think you could argue the package you need to give up to get Anthony Davis, it's going to be less on balance, more salary for sure, but you're going to have to include at least 2 first-round picks for Trey Murphy, at least. And I would probably say take the over if we set it at 2.5.
Okay. Yeah. So you're basically saying we get the higher upside guy, like basically the guy who is better at a cheaper price point, but obviously we attack on the risk of him not playing, which is the entire purpose of trading for him.
I think I'd almost be more intrigued just because of the pick equity. I think if you could get Derek White for 2 first-round picks versus what it's going to take to get Trey Murphy, I think that intrigues me more as Golden State. Where do you land on that?
So I like Derek White. I think given the 3-point identifier that they've gotten, or the shot volume that he's gotten from 3 in Boston because of their insane focus on that shot, insane in a good way, that would just make him such a smooth fit in Golden State. Like he can play on ball, off ball. You can have him guard 1 through 3, I want to say. The defense alone is going to lift you. He can play with Jimmy. He can play with Steph. The versatility there is great. Am I wrong for thinking they still need to solve something big man-wise?
Yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of stuff they need to solve. Now, I think also if your argument is that when you look at kind of the players who are emerging, Will Richard, Pat Spence, they're all on the perimeter. So for sure, I think you could make that case. But the names aside from Davis who are out there, then I don't think Kristaps. You need someone more reliable. If I want to bet on reliability, I'm taking Davis 11 times out of 10.
Yeah,
the other thing I've run into is I've seen some people suggest Nick Claxton defensively, a monster, has shown some of the passing this year has popped with him. Has Golden State ever made a big man like that work for them?
Have they had someone like him?
Well, James Wiseman flames out. Even Jonathan Kuminga, someone who is not the intuitive motion type of guy. Defensively, he's just there's no questions about Nick Claxton. It feels like they're only they need decision-making bigs or kind of a floor spacing big. That's why Quentin Post can work out for them. At least that's what they seem to prefer under Kerr. And even just, I know Jonathan Kuminga is not a big, but it's some of the same mindset too, to where he doesn't fit the core tenets of what Golden State stands for. And if he wasn't able to evolve into a fit, he just hasn't worked. And I'm not saying he was good enough for Golden State to adapt around, but it's just the question I've had in the back of my mind.
Yeah. That's a good question. I think highly of Nick Claxton. I think his on-court intelligence is at that level where he will find a way. But I understand what you're saying. They need to find someone who is a fit for the system. Everything is tailored around Steph, more or less. If there's any concern whatsoever that this player would be a poor fit next to Steph, you immediately cross that name off the list and go, moving on. Is Nick Claxton on that list? Is he being crossed off there?
If it's just costing you Kuminga and salary, I'd probably roll the dice.
Yeah.
The other name that's been bandied about, Miles Turner.
He can shoot, and he can defend the rim. He's not a great rebounder, but who is on that team, really? He's big. He's got a little bit of a mid-range game, too. so he can step out. I wouldn't hate that. What was the deal he signed in Milwaukee? Was that like a 27?
He's also the 3-point. He's at 37.8% from 3 on the season, so that's come up. He's not shooting as well in his past whatever games. I think he's sub 33%.
25.3 million this year.
Yeah, so it's Jonathan. Like, I'm not giving up a pick for him at this point. It's Jonathan Kuminga, and I to be fair, why is Milwaukee doing? Would you give up a pick, Jonathan Kuminga, a pick and a small salary to get Miles Turner as Golden State? And then also, can I ask another question? If you're gonna do that now, why didn't you do it 4 years ago when you were first linked to Miles Turner?
Yeah,
we're gonna wait until he's more expensive and probably not as good, and now we're gonna give up draft
right now
picks
we're
for
getting
him.
it. Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. I mean, if it's Kuminga going to Milwaukee, at least that's somewhat interesting to me because you get younger.
Are you selling that to Giannis, or is it now you're saying it's we got younger, more athletic, and now Giannis, you're our center?
Oh, I forgot that we have to sell everything to Giannis. No, I hear you. That makes sense. I mean, you do get like an additional scorer and someone who's active around the rim, someone who puts pressure on the defense. Like, is Giannis smart enough to see that? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if he prefers like the older veterans that he's always been accustomed to being around, and he's
maybe
like,
Jericho Sims is his best friend, and getting Jericho Sims more playing time will be the tipping point.
Right. God, that's depressing. I would probably go the Miles Turner route if I'm Golden State, but I wouldn't love it. Yeah.
2 more bigs that spring to mind. I was actually going to name check him as a candidate, but we'll just talk about him here. But Naz Reid, you could get. There's probably a third team involved, but you can give up picks, and that allows Minnesota to do other things that they can't do right now because they don't have picks.
Love the offensive fit. Not sure about the defensive fit whatsoever. Does it matter? I don't know.
I think if Draymond and Jimmy are staying as part of that.
Yeah. If that's the Kuminga trade, I'm open to that. I'm open to a Kuminga Naz Reid swap.
You need I don't like Kuminga in Minnesota at all though, and so I'm doing it if I'm Minnesota because Golden State's giving me picks, and then I'm sending who's the team that wants Kuminga enough that is because if you're. What if you're getting, okay, here we go. So Jonathan Kuminga goes to Chicago. And then I'm assuming a pick would go there too. And then Chicago is sending Kobe White to Minnesota plus other stuff. I mean, could you game it so that you're also, do you want Vooch backing up Gobert? You probably don't. But you could get, Io as part, you get Jalen Smith as part of that deal, I'm sure.
So what? Chicago ends up with Kuminga,
and I think so. From Minnesota's perspective, I'm basically. I mean, the Bulls will do whatever we tell them to. I feel like it.
Right.
So
that's the amenable team. Yes.
If you're Minnesota and you're giving up Naz Reid and the primary return is Kobe White plus, we need to fill that in. Now, is that enough, or are you looking to? You need more than that.
They so desperately need another guard. So yeah, I would do that. Absolutely, I would. Yes. And
you could probably have your pick then of just the Bulls is expiring. It's you might, if you want Io and or Trey Jones as part of that, you could throw that in there as well.
If you get more guard heavy in Minnesota and you stand a chance at re-signing some of those guys in the summer, using the money that you got off of the Naz Reid stuff, yeah.
My primary knock would be you really need an heir apparent to Rudy Gobert. But my counter to that would be Johan Berenger is going to be a Hall of Famer. But my actual counter to that is I think you're still running into the same issue even if Naz Reid is on your... I love Naz Reid.
Oh, yeah.
And this isn't... I hate suggesting... I know his sister, that was so tragic over the offseason. I'm just looking at this from a basketball financial perspective. It's nothing more. I'm not trying to crap on... And he's... I just don't think defensively... I don't view him as an heir apparent at the center position. And if you do, I think Minnesota needs to change the context of what's in front of him a great deal. Jaden Ant, sure, but you need to build out the image of your team at those other 2 spots if Naz Reid's going to be your 5.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I have some other names if you're willing to get to them. but I'm going to need levels of nuclear again. You just said as nuclear as possible. So
stay the course, my friend.
Do I have? Well, I don't know if I have anybody who's that nuclear. Let's say, I guess. Well, this is semi-nuclear.
Okay.
Toronto with Immanuel Quickley and Jakob Poeltl. I think that the name that's been mentioned the most as a trade candidate for them is RJ Barrett. And is it a coincidence that they started sucking once RJ Barrett got injured? I honestly don't know. That's not the perspective I'm coming at this from. But if you're looking to upgrade the big man rotation, can you feasibly do that and keep Jakob Poeltl, who's now dealing with a back injury? You can go out and get a backup big, but just how meaningful does it be? And if you want to swing even higher, I think you could still, I know fans aren't feeling good about that contract, but I think you could still argue that Immanuel Quickley is still maybe more important to making everything work. And so I don't know what Toronto's going to do with the deadline because they're also within $800,000 of the tax. I could see them ducking it as well. I'm just so fascinated. And also, they have a lot of guys I like who aren't what you would consider core members, but I find myself wondering, are they actually deep enough if they're trying to be this serious playoff team? So those were just the two names where it's, okay, we know they're not going to move Scotty. We know they're not going to move Ingram. Everyone's talking about RJ Barrett.
Right.
But, is there a name? They've been linked to Anthony Davis a little bit. They've been linked to Sabonis. Does that get you thinking about moving? Jakob Poeltl almost has to be part of any Anthony Davis trade. So I would say ditto for Sabonis. But do any of the names that have been linked to get you to think about moving one of these two guys?
One of them, yes. Two of them, probably not.
I didn't mean at the same time. I just meant in general.
Yeah, Quickley, I'm not really keen on trading unless I get a primary playmaker back, honestly, because who is going to take that responsibility full time if you ship him out for a big man? That I'm not insanely enthusiastic about. Poeltl, I just wonder what the hell his trade value is because of the extension that's going to kick in 27. That's a lot of money coming in suddenly on the books as well. He is locked in for 4 years after this year. Is he 30 already, or he's about to turn 30? So you're basically going to pay him a shit ton of cash when he's starting to decline. I would assume that makes him not that interesting on the trade market, or am I being too harsh?
If you put Jakob Poeltl on the block in a vacuum, I don't know that there would be a ton of interest. I think as a movable contract, as part of a bigger deal, that he is eminently relocatable.
Okay.
I would share your same concerns about trading a guard to go for a big, even if you trust Scotty and Brandon Ingram to set up a ton of your offense. Immanuel Quickley is still just the guy who is leading this team in assists. So that certainly matters. And that's a good point about if you can't. I mean, maybe Dallas would be more interested in Quickley, though, if they were moving Anthony Davis. That would be something to consider. And perhaps you just view it as, all right, he's 6.4 assists per game. Look what Jamal Shed can do on his drives. And we have Scotty and we have Brandon Ingram. And if RJ Barrett's healthy. And Toronto fascinates me. Sometimes morbidly so. I don't know what they should be doing. I get the need because they want some extra heft and more of a rim protector. And Anthony Davis there that'd be fun. It's just, what are you giving? It's Jakob Poeltl, and who else is the matching salary? It's him, Barrett, I guess, and then what's the young piece? Are you giving up Jacoby Walter, who's been very important to them this year? How many picks are you including? Is Colin Murray Boyles on the table in that scenario? We both love some CMB.
Yeah. Would he make sense in Dallas next to Cooper Flagg? I think there's a lot of overlap between those two.
Colin Murray, well, I'm just as a value perspective. If you're Dallas, you're just trying to get everything that Toronto has.
That's true. I mean, I would definitely go the Poeltl Barrett route as opposed to Quickley Poeltl route if I'm going for AD, because I would kind of want to pair AD with Quickley. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Unless you're thinking, are we going out and getting another? But then you're talking about other moving parts.
Right. And I respect what Jamal Sheed can do as just in terms of a playmaker. The efficiency is not where it needs to be at this current point.
He is a defensive maniac, though. I appreciate that.
He is. Am I wrong in saying there's like a smidge of Rajon Rondo in him at times? Like just the defense, the playmaking, but the offense is just so.
That's interesting. He just I feel like I can't see it because he plays at such a different cadence than Rondo did. Yeah.
Right. No, I'm not saying aesthetically, but just in terms of like strengths and weaknesses. Like there isn't this sort of identity, I want to say, in his scoring game.
He almost feels more identity-wise, not aesthetically. I want to make that clear. Right. Almost feels more Kyle Lowry-esque to me.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Kyle Lowry was always a better shooter, but remember for so long the knock on him was he wasn't efficient enough either.
Right. Yeah. And then suddenly he just became a knockdown.
An all-NBA player, man. What a career arc.
That would be that would be a wild story.
Do you like them as any of the other bigs that have been? Are they a good Claxton team? Sabonis is out now for another 4 to 5 weeks, so I don't know what that would do.
Oh, I wouldn't see. The thing is, I wouldn't even like Sabonis there because I do think they need, rim defense. Nick
you're
Claxton
right.
There, yeah,
he would honestly make more sense if you were trading Quickley because okay, we have guys that can just run our offense, but that's not. Right. You're getting bigger, burlier, more physical, but you're not you're not adding defensively where you want to add, for sure.
Exactly.
Nick Claxton, feels like he fits the Raptors motif. Are you Here's the conundrum though. Who do you give up in a Nick Claxton? Like Anthony Davis, it's easier to just say, well, we have to consolidate. Nick Claxton's the guy who's on the borderline of, are you just trying to upgrade from Poeltl? Do you view Claxton as that upgrade, or are you now moving other salaries? Because now do you go with RJ Barrett as part of a construction for Nick Claxton?
So Poeltl is earning about $6 million less. So is that Agbaji and Poeltl?
Yeah, I mean, you could do that, and I don't know if Brooklyn probably wants something else. Agbaji's going to be a restricted free agent.
Oh, we know what Brooklyn's going to ask for. They're going to say Poeltl and Colin Murray-Boyles.
You can't. No, yeah, I'm not trading Colin Murray-Boyles for Claxton.
No, I'm not either. Claxton. I'm saying that's what they're going to ask for damn sure.
Yeah.
But, like, can they find...
I think they could find... I think... conceptually, would you prefer as Toronto to have Nick Claxton over Jakob Poeltl?
Oh yeah, I would. He's more versatile. He's a little bit younger. Fits the timeline a little bit better. I think his contract also is better. I just think there are far more benefits to Claxton than Poeltl at this point. And I love Poeltl.
The thing I worry about, I've never been the biggest Poeltl guy, but what's interesting about him is I recognize his value to the Raptors.
Yeah.
He's going to be the better screener. And I just think if you don't have the A+ passer on your team, which they still would not, what he does, even what he can do at points as a passer, but because of his screening, because of his smarts on the short roll, you're not going to get that same stuff from Claxton. And so are you creating one problem by attempting to address? And you're also not. Nick Claxton's not way more physical than Jakob Poeltl. That's not something you're adding with him either. He has more of a spindly build. He could defend on the perimeter way better. Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, for sure. I'm going that route. Is there anyone else, like, in terms of, like, because I was sitting here thinking about rim running defenders, because you were talking about, like, that kind of seems like that's the Raptors' MO. I agree. I was wondering, and again, it depends on whether you trust him to stay healthy. Like, there's the minutes restriction in place in New York, but Mitchell Robinson, is that something for the Raptors instead? But, like,
what's the trade?
Yeah, and also it's probably in a backup capacity too. So,
I think that's fine. But if it's getting to the money is tough for them because he's at $13 million, and they have, like, their salary distribution is just like they have a bunch of guys in the 30s, 3 guys in the 30s, RJ at 27.7, and then it's Poeltl at 19.5, and then the drop off is to Agbaji at 6.4.
Yeah, it drops off like a rock. Further underlining the need to have those mid-tier contracts on your books.
So you're defending the Zeke Naji deal again. Good on you.
Is that a mid-sized deal? Yeah. No, that's tough, right? Like, you can't get the money worked on that one.
It would probably take like a third team where Toronto is
Yeah.
sending out Barrett or just a more expensive player.
God, that's probably gonna. I mean, that's even if they do succeed in like some variation of Poeltl plus, let's just say Abaji, and then you get Claxton in there. Then Barnes at 38, Brandon Ingram 38, Immanuel Quickley 32, Barrett 27. And then it's Claxton at 25 and a half, and then it drops off to Colin Murray Boyles on a rookie deal. That's top heavy money right there. That's tough.
Let's do one more name. And I'm listing him because Milwaukee is hysterical. They also didn't play Ryan Rollins enough in their loss to Minnesota the other night. If the Bucks are serious about making a big splash this season, Ryan Rollins almost has to be in the deal, does he not? Because you could trade 1 first-round pick and salaries, and you have swaps that you could include in there. And so if I'm a team, his deal has only one more cost-controlled year on it because it's a player option in that third year, right? It's not a team option.
It is a player option, yes.
He's been so good that I just wonder if Milwaukee was taking the long view here. And the other thing that they could view it as is they could say this. We're keeping Giannis. Our pick this year is going to be good, whether it's ours or the Pelicans. We could then trade 2 additional first-round picks over the summer. What if we could get first-round picks for Ryan Rollins now to consolidate? Because, again, he is going to be paid once more after next season. This is, I'm not even arguing in favor of it. I'm just curious if they are that desperate to keep the Giannis window open. Is Ryan Rollins more valuable? Not window, but if they're that desperate to keep Giannis, is Ryan Rollins more valuable to them as a trade asset or as a player they keep?
As a player they keep.
I tend to agree. I would just ask, what are they capable of doing if he's off limits? Then.
Oh, absolutely nothing. But I mean, I understand, but that's been you're painting me into a corner because you're right. He does have the most trade value. The thing is, he's earning $4 million, so that's tough to get something in return for.
Well,
you would have to Yeah.
Does Houston just say, "Hey, here's Tari Eason and 2 first-round picks for Ryan Rollins"? The low-end first-round picks, or is it Tari Eason and a first-round pick? Does that get you? He's going to be an RFA, so you have to consider that. But I don't think he's going to get mega paid. I don't think
the Bucks better now, or does it just line them up for the future?
Does it make the Bucks better now? I think you could actually argue it might make them worse now and into the future, depending on what that pick looks like. So that was a bad, but a team like Houston would be, oh, this guy's so cheap, fits a lot of what they're doing and what they could need. Do you have a conversation about it?
You probably do. I think my issue is, Tari to me is a 3 or a 4-3. What's the need there? Kyle Kuzma is still around. Bobby Portis is still around. Obviously, Giannis.
You're just naming players that I don't factor into making any deal. So
no. But do you have follow-up moves for them?
Well, for them, you would then. Well, do you need one? Because Tari Eason, I think, if you wanted to get shiftier on the perimeter defensively, which is what they need, done, and then the secondary ball handling. Okay, without Ryan Rollins, but you do still have, they run a lot of stuff through a healthy Kevin Porter Jr. I want to be clear. I don't think that's going to be the long-term answer. I'm just curious as to, I don't know that it makes them better, but I don't know that it demands some wild follow-up. Or maybe, is there something to being able to address, would you prefer to get a guard for Ryan Rollins plus a first-round pick? It doesn't need, I view wing as a bigger need. But if you're getting rid of Ryan Rollins, you could probably make the case that, okay, well, then another ball handler is a bigger deal.
I want another ball handler. I don't think they can afford that. I mean, I know how Kevin Porter Jr. has played this year, but he's also been historically not overly reliable in terms of length and the efficiency tends to go up and down. What he's doing right now is super efficient. Is it going to look that way when he crosses the 25 games played mark? I'm skeptical. So I'm not buying into the production quite yet because his sample size is super small.
and Ryan Rollins is just incredibly expansive.
I mean, it's 29 games compared to 10 at least.
Oh, talking about just this season. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I mean, and the way that he's played, I mean, like you said, you've muted yourself, sir.
I'm coming at this from the perspective of Ryan Rollins' contract is actually just so much shorter than it seems. And maybe I'm galaxy braining it and saying this isn't someone they have to worry about overpaying. But the two scenarios are you're good enough, he stays, and you have to pay him a bunch of money. And the other scenario would be, okay, Giannis leaves, we trade him, and you still have to pay him a bunch of money when he's entering his age 25 season or whatever it is. Does that fit? And you could say, hey, where timelines are stupid. That's fair. You could also say, hey, we'll deal with it when the moment comes. There's also something to the idea of, well, what is his value? Because this is its peak. The team that gets him knows they have 2 more playoff runs at least with him. And he's so cheap. So he's someone that if you're a good team that has picks, you don't need to trip over yourself trying to figure out the salary matching behind it all.
Yeah. No, I get the conundrum because that is what it is. That's a conundrum. Damn. Yeah. That's a good one.
If you're trying to get the two,
if you're trying does the other one.
If you're trying to get Anthony Davis as the Bucks, it's Ryan Rollins your pick, and then we'll step ladder our way to salaries, and that might actually get Dallas thinking. You remember Ryan Rollins and Cooper Flagg? It'd be insane defensive combination.
Yeah, 23 years old, right? That would fit the timeline.
Now, this is all to say, I want to make it clear that I'm not moving. If someone bowled me over and said, here's a bunch of first round picks for Ryan Rollins, I'm absolutely going to consider it. But I don't think the Bucks should be, if they are going to make their last gasp Giannis move, then really do the damn thing. Wait till the offseason when you could throw 3 first round picks on the table, and that's when you do it. But I'm just curious as to they've been mentioned to these other names that they're not going to take any picks, let alone Ryan Rollins. But if you're going to mention them with an Anthony Davis, they could theoretically be Anthony Davis and Giannis, I don't know. Defensively, sure. I don't know how anyone feels about that offensively, but Ryan Rollins, I think, is worth more than the equivalent of 1 first round pick. And that's the name that could get the Bucks into meaningful trade discussions.
It's interesting because I hadn't considered that angle before. That's why I'm hesitating, because I think that's super interesting. I had just sort of shoehorned him in at that spot for at least the rest of the year because he's that good. I think he's the second best player on the team this year.
He is. I don't even know if there's an argument for anybody.
Right. Exactly.
Look, if you're factoring in availability, there might be an argument for Giannis as the second best player of the team.
And I think that's just such a tough sell. But I understand your point though. If you believe in this group, that might be the guy to pivot off of. But you could also make the argument that if you believe in this group, if he's the second best player on the team, what's the logic in pivoting off of him? You might be able to get better. That will cost you something on the depth department. I don't have a firm answer to you other than I like Ryan Rollins a whole bit, and I would love for him to stay alongside Giannis because I think those two just mesh so well. So I am disinclined to go the full, hey, let's trade, unless the return is so preposterously to my advantage as the Bucks. Yes.
Let's play the name game then. So I mentioned Anthony Davis. Would you give up Ryan Rollins and an Anthony Davis trade?
No.
Then LaMelo Ball?
No.
I'm trying to think of realistic. I could name names that it would work, but who would be a player they'd be in for? They just don't. I was going to say Jaren Jackson Jr., but they just don't have the assets to get in that race.
And if you're going to say John Morant, I was going to say that too. And
if you're not going to give them up for LaMelo, you're not going to give him up for Trey or John Morant, I would assume. I think LaMelo has more trade value than all three, but that's why I would say is there one of those 3 names you would consider? You said no to John Morant, so it would be Trey.
Yeah, I have Trey higher than those two. I really don't. Or I really do, because I think Trey is better than Ja and LaMelo. I trust him far more. Yeah, are there defensive concerns? Absolutely. Is he 6'1" as listed? Fuck no. There are so many issues with that point guard crop, but at least Trey comes in and you know what you're going to get to a certain extent. You don't really know what you're going to get with LaMelo on a night-to-night basis. You don't really know what you're going to get with Ja Morant either, because everything is a shit show. At least with Trey, you understand you're going to get the elite level of court vision. You're going to get volume scoring. You know you're going to get a lot of free throws, efficiently so. Like, that baseline to me is at least intriguing. Am I willing to give up Ryan Rollins for Trae Young? That's at least far more interesting than Anthony Davis, who I might acquire and who will end up playing 25 games for me.
I'm not even worried about the health. Just the Giannis AD fit. Again, defensively, sure.
Yeah, I hate it.
Yeah. What about Derek White?
Nah.
Trey Murphy?
Nope.
Is there? I'm trying to think, is there a name? What we get, like...
But again, I'm also prioritizing guards here because I do think you need more guards. I understand your point. You're saying, you would want someone who is more of a wing type, who comes in and changes the game defensively. I hear that. I understand that. I appreciate that. That's just taking so much away from the guard spot. I'm not willing to make that trade-off.
Well, okay, what if they call and they just say it's Rollins, the pick, and just get to the salary matching, and you can have your selection between James Harden or Kawhi Leonard?
Okay. Harden is so old, though. He's so old. Kawhi intrigues me. Even next to Giannis, Kawhi intrigues me.
Kawhi would intrigue me too, but that's you're talking
just
about banking on what are you going to get game to game, year to year to him is
right. How many games he played this year so far? 18. Okay. Well, he missed that chunk in the middle. So, like, outside of that, he hasn't been missing games, right? Let me just check.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit here and lie to you. Because it feels like he's played after he returned, right? And then, okay, I have it here. He missed that chunk of games in November. Outside of that, he's been available. Like, can we live with that? Or are we just certain he's going to go down again?
I'd probably do it if I'm not just to be. It could be so destructive, but at the same time, it's if it doesn't work out, then at least you've limited the damage to okay, we didn't wait until the summer and trade all these other first round picks.
Right. I will say this: over the past 10 games, 27 points, 7 rebounds.
Well, there's no question about Kawhi's ability. That is not the question with Kawhi.
It's just so ridiculous, man. I mean, I would have to pull the trigger on that. But like, again, this is like what the Bucks do, right? Like they just paint themselves into a corner and then they're like, okay, how much further can we go in an attempt to keep Giannis around? Like this would be their final Hail Mary. It really would. And I'm not even sure that this deal is going to would even materialize.
I think you could argue if Kawhi and Giannis stay healthy, the Bucks would. But then you look at the talent that's left around them, though. So getting to the money for Kawhi, who's at $50 million, it would just be so much harder because you're giving up in that scenario. Just when you're looking at Miles Turner gone, Kyle Kuzma fine, that's gone.
That's an asset. Getting out of the Kyle Kuzma business is an asset.
Well, but then you're left with Bobby Portis, Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent.
Yeah. It's not a lot. And I am just inclined to keep the young fella around. I really am.
Yeah, I don't think there's another good name to this. I mean, one that would even be semi-realistic. Are you doing it for... You're not. There's no way you're doing it for Tyler Hero, right?
A lot of scoring upside, a lot of volume. The deal is coming up soon. Does he mess with Giannis to the same extent? Not enough playmaking. It's closer because I think for the Bucks specifically, he fills some very specific needs.
Okay.
But I'm still on the Ryan Rollins wagon here.
Oh, maybe this is interesting, but based off his own health and the way he's played this season, Darius Garland.
Yeah, I mean, a healthy Garland, I'm saying yes to immediately. But it's been a while with that toe, right?
He's not moving the same. He did look, what was the game I saw against him the other night? Was it Charlotte? Was it that disaster where he looked pretty good? I can't even remember at this point. But I think if the Bucks, you kind of have to do it. I don't know if I'm Cleveland. Man, yeah, I guess you're doing it as you don't think he's going to be fine, and Ryan Rollins is cheaper. But the Bucks don't have other players. Or what's your interest in? Like, who is the matching salary in that deal?
Right.
With Darius Garland is what you get into, because you're not Ryan Rollins. Sure, fits in Cleveland like a glove, but you're not as Cleveland. You're not. Oh, Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah, no. It's Garland is a case I'm tracking a little bit, because this is worrisome. Like when the Spurs traded for Fox, I was like, I think they should have held out and tried for Garland. Now that the toe injury is like limited him to the point that it is, I'm like, oh, bullet dodged. So let's just go with the healthy guy there, Ryan Rollins. At this stage, I can't roll the dice on this situation.
I'm very curious to see what Milwaukee ends up doing.
Yeah.
You have anything else to say, or can you just tell our audience where they can find you and all the work that you do?
Yes, sir. You can find me over at Yahoo Sports. I have the NBA podcast, and if you speak Danish, I do the podcast Buzzer Beater and Call Games in Danish for HBO Max.
Until next time, and as always, do all the things as Grant says: rate, review, subscribe on YouTube, leave us reviews on Apple 5 stars, and written reviews really help people with discoverability. So we have the ratings climbing up there, but more written reviews would be great. We'd appreciate it. Finally, but not leastly, shout out to the one, the only, the real player who could fix Milwaukee's future if they let him, Mr. Frank Ntilikina.